Hello, and welcome to another Ask the Experts. I'm Diane Southard, founder and CEO of Your DNA Guide, and I'm here with my very good friend and fellow Academy coach, Michelle Leonard. So, Michelle and I have known each other for a lot of years. It actually started back, I should have looked up the year, but I didn't. A long time ago when I spoke at Genetic Genealogy Ireland. And so I was in Ireland for the first time. And so Michelle and I spent a lot of time together. She was a fellow speaker. So we were kind of touring together. We did some fun things as speakers as well. We didn't just work, which was a lot of fun. And I think what I remember most, my first impression of Michelle, is she is so fun to be around. She's a happy person and I'm a happy person. And so it was just like fun all the time because we were just joy to be together and to explore a new friend. And plus she's, super smart and loves to talk DNA and genealogy. And what more could you want in a friend than that? So that's my introduction of Michelle, but I'm going to give her 2 minutes to introduce herself to us.
Okay, 2 minutes. I think 2016, but it might have been 1 year either side. But anyway,
Okay,
2 minutes. I'm using some of it up. So let's see. What can I say about myself? I have been interested and in love with family history since I was a child, basically. And I started doing my own family history research in my teens. And then later on, I did an MA in history and English at St Andrews here in Scotland, and sort of fell into historical research and different things, and then decided to sort of take my passion for my family history and my sort of historical background and mesh them together and become a traditional professional genealogist, which is what I did. And then fast forward and along comes the Fromelles Genealogy Project, which really changed everything for me. And it was a project where I was trying to find and identify DNA testers to, identify First World War soldiers found in a mass grave in northern France. It was a huge project, and it was my first just entry into DNA, I guess. And that was back in 2008, 2009. So it was before DNA became a really big thing in genealogy. Y-DNA was around then, of course, but it just hadn't exploded yet in genealogy, and autosomal hadn't taken off. So when it did, I already had that grounding and was just totally open to it and excited about it and ran with it and made it my specialism. And that's where I am today. I'm a professional genealogist, of course, still a traditional one, but also a genetic one. I tend to use DNA detective more because I feel like that's more what I'm doing is trying to solve mysteries using DNA. But yeah, I wear a lot of hats. I run my own genealogy and DNA consultancy business, Genes and Genealogy, and I specialize in trying to solve those mysteries, trying to find those answers for people that DNA can help with, but traditional genealogy alone couldn't. It's the combining of the two that's always my mantra, and that's what I'm always working on. But when I'm not working on client cases, I'm also loving educating people on how to do it themselves, coaching, creating DNA courses, teaching, running Q&As, writing books, blogs, etc., and just all sorts of speaking, webinars, and everything else where people have probably seen me before. But that's probably more than 2 minutes. I'm stopping.
Awesome. No, it's great. We're so happy to have you. And when all of this DNA and security stuff went down, I'm grateful to have you on our team at Your DNA Guide with all of your expertise. And I'm grateful to be having this conversation with you. I've already seen a lot of comments in the chat. People are really concerned and interested in our conversation today. So let's just jump out with a 2-minute version. Oh, I'm sorry, that was your wrong question. Summarize the security issues that we've had just over the last month or so. Just kind of lay it out for us so everybody's on the same page.
Okay, so in early October, we started to see and hear rumors that there had been some sort of a hack or data breach involving 23andMe. And 23andMe initially said that they did not find any, their systems had not been breached in any way, and that is quite likely the case. However, a few days down the line, they did let us know that they were starting to investigate claims that a hacker had stolen millions of 23andMe pieces of data, including 1 million users of Ashkenazi Jewish descent, 100,000 Chinese users. And actually, the more we delve into it, the more it looks like this hacker had been advertising 23andMe data as early as early August. But of course, it all came out in October. So since then, there's been a massive response, not just by 23andMe, but all of the different DNA testing companies. But I just want to take a little bit of time to understand what has actually happened. And it is something, or at least this is what 23andMe says. The hacker is saying something slightly different, and we can't corroborate that, so I'm not going to go into that. But 23andMe is basically saying it is something that we would call credential stuffing. So what is that? So basically, that is data breaches elsewhere. Other data breaches are happening all the time. People's data, usernames, and passwords, unfortunately, are being stolen all the time from different websites. And therefore, if you have a username and a password, let's say on website 1, and website 1 is breached, and your username and password are within that data that has been stolen, and you also use that username and password, and often your username is your email address, and you're going to have the same email address across sites. If you're using that also on 23andMe, then what these hackers are doing is they're gambling that you might be reusing your passwords and usernames. And they're going to go to 23andMe and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to plug this in and I'm going to see if I get in as you. And of course, they have in many, many occasions. And so calling it a data breach at 23andMe is technically probably not completely correct. But the data breach has happened, and people are getting in and taking data from 23andMe. And the key thing is that they're taking it from the DNA relatives feature. So even if you are one of the people like me who had a unique, strong password at 23andMe, you may have got that email from them, important information about your account, saying that you were part of it and that your data has been taken as part of it because you were sharing through the DNA relatives part of the account. So that kind of sums up what has happened.
Right. So if the language that we're using here is really important, and it's important for our own knowledge as well as for the kind of security and the confidence that other people have in this industry. So I just want to let us hear what Michelle just said. It's not actually a data breach at 23andMe. Okay, that sounds like 23andMe was negligent and that they did something wrong to release our data into the world, when really, guys, it was us. We are the ones that are doing something wrong by using the same username and password across multiple sites. Now, of course, not our fault that somebody wants to behave badly and go steal that data, but in the end, it's just important that we're messaging this correctly to our friends and neighbors, because we don't want them to misunderstand the role of the testing company in this situation. Okay, so let's just kind of scrub our language and make sure we're talking about this accurately, again, because our industry needs to be strong, right? We need people to have confidence in taking a DNA test. And when things like this happen, we see that bump where people are like, nah, I don't know if I want to do this. We need to educate them on, yeah, there is a danger. Obviously, something bad has happened, but whose fault is it? Right? Where should we lay the blame, and how can we move forward, really is what we're talking about. So really now talking about moving forward, Michelle and I are going to talk through kind of each testing company and what they've done, and then of course what we can do. So let's start just with 23andMe, since they kicked this all off. What are the things that 23andMe has done since October?
So since it happened, you know, they acted quite quickly at that point, and the first thing that was done was a mandatory password change. So, you know, I can't remember exactly which date it was on, but very quickly afterwards, when you tried to log into your 23andMe account, you were forced to change your password before you could do so. Now, this affected a lot of people, especially people with access to deceased relative accounts who no longer have access to their defunct email address. And I know that that's caused a lot of anguish a lot of anguish. Yeah, it's really, really sad that that happened. But the fact that it has happened means that we have to try and make sure it doesn't happen in the future. But we're going to talk about future proofing later, so we'll leave that there. But the key thing is that everyone has had to change their password at 23andMe mandatorily. So that was done, and they also very quickly disabled a lot of really, really good features that were really missing, but that we understand why they have disabled them, because their investigation into all of this is still ongoing, and it's going to take time, and we have to be patient. But they've temporarily disabled some features within the DNA relatives tool, and as an added security measure, they've temporarily disabled the ability to download raw genetic data. So basically, currently we have lost relatives in common, the shared match list, which, you know, we're always telling you is the key power tool.
The most important part.
And the most important thing we can have, and we don't have it right now. So that is really sad, and it's tough. We've lost the shared match list. It's not there. We also don't have the chromosome browser. It has been disabled too. We don't have the one-to-one chromosome browser on the individual comparison page. So where you would look for it under that DNA data, you don't have the number of the centimorgans, etc., and you can't see the chromosomes in that side view. And you don't have the advanced DNA comparison tool, which is their one-to-many chromosome browser. That's disabled too. And as I say, you can't download your raw data to upload it somewhere else right now, and you can't download your relative match list like you used to be able to do. So those are all the things that 23andMe have disabled. Hopefully, we will get some of them back eventually. But for right now, we're just going to have to be patient on that front. And of course, the key thing that they've done, that all the sites are doing, is instituted mandatory two-step verification. Now that has been mandatory now on 23andMe as of the 6th of November. So we have to use it going forward. Now we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but the key thing about it is that it's giving us added security for getting into our accounts so that those threat actors, those bad actors cannot get in. Because if they could get in with our password and our login that they've stolen from another site, they're then not going to be able to pass that second step with that 6-digit code that will be sent to us, and that we can then use to get into our site. So it is an added security measure, and 23andMe have made it mandatory.
That's right. Okay, so that sums up 23andMe. Our next company to act was then MyHeritage. So tell us, what did MyHeritage do pretty soon after this announcement with 23andMe?
Yeah, very quickly. So MyHeritage has actually had two-factor authentication since 2018. I think 23andMe have had it since 2019. So it's not new. It's just it was never mandatory before. We could always choose to use it or choose not to use it. So MyHeritage is also making it mandatory. So you can get via codes to your phone, an SMS message, or you can use an authenticator app. And you can use an authenticator app on 23andMe as well. So either of those options are available to you. MyHeritage have also temporarily, they turned off their chromosome browser, but they have now brought it back since then. So that came back quite quickly. And they've currently removed the ability to export shared DNA segment information for DNA matches. So if you're looking at those 3 little dots drop down and you're trying to download that at the moment, that's not there. I'm hoping that it will return. Or a more secure way to access it can be instituted, but we'll just need to wait and see on that front. But you can still download your raw data from MyHeritage. They haven't taken that out of commission. Awesome. So basically, two-factor authentication and not being able to download your shared DNA segment data.
Okay, so you touched on this a little bit. I'm going to bring up Karen's question. So this new security with this two-factor, how is it going to affect how search angels or coaches or anybody else who were asking to help us with our data, how do you see this affecting that kind of portion of our industry?
In a big way. And I know there's another question coming up where I was actually going to completely address that. So I don't know if we want to wait till then to do it.
Yeah, just do it now. Tell us now.
Okay, let's just do it now. So yeah, that is the key problem where those that work professionally or in an amateur way who need access to other people's results in order to help them to evaluate their DNA results is going to have a problem. But there are only a couple of sites on which there will be a real problem. So, for instance, currently, Ancestry give us a way to share our DNA information with someone else. So Ancestry, it's not going to be a problem there. We can use the sharing mechanism that they already give us. And actually, that's exactly what we should be using, simply because it's against the Ancestry terms and conditions to share your login information with another party anyway. So we should be making sure that they give us access in the correct way. So Ancestry's fine. FamilyTreeDNA, there's also a way to share, albeit it's a little clunkier, but we can get a private project with FamilyTreeDNA, and we can ask our clients or the people that we're helping to join our project, and therefore there's no changing of login details. MyHeritage is much more difficult, and it is the key thing that I would beg of all the companies, is that they institute a sharing mechanism, a sharing feature, a sharing tool that we have, like the one we have at Ancestry, at MyHeritage, at 23andMe, even at FamilyTreeDNA. I would love it to have it at all those sites, and it would make life so much easier as a professional to have that sharing mechanism. On MyHeritage, realistically, and actually the only way to truly be in compliance with their rules is to have the person you're helping download their raw data, probably from Ancestry if they've already uploaded it to MyHeritage, and to have sent that to you in a secure way, and then for you to upload the raw data to your account as a duplicate, which I know is not great, and then you work on it in your own account. There's no passing of login information whatsoever, and you turn it off when you're not working on it, and you delete it once you've finished working on it, so that there isn't a duplicate messing up the system. It's not the best solution, absolutely, and it's what I have to do right now. So that's why I'm hoping that will be a priority for MyHeritage at some point, to try and institute a sharing option for us, because that would be fantastic. At 23andMe, we're going to have issues. If we need to see 23andMe information, then the only way to do so is via sharing login information currently. And therefore, with the two-factor authentication, we're going to have to coordinate with that person we're helping, with our client, in order to log in and have a look at their results in a particular time frame for 23andMe. There really currently is no other way to do it. There isn't anything in the 23andMe conditions that say we shouldn't do that currently, but remember, 23andMe isn't a family history database. It doesn't have a subscription for records and the like Ancestry and MyHeritage do. You can see why MyHeritage and Ancestry certainly do not want us to be able to share logins with other people, because we're effectively giving them access to a subscription we're paying for ourselves by doing so. However, as I say, 23andMe is going to be an issue going forward on this front, so I really hope that they look at a sharing mechanism as well.
Awesome.
I think that covers all the main ones.
Right. So we were talking basically then, to summarize, the impact that it's going to have on us as experts, and on you, perhaps if you're helping even a friend or a neighbor or a family member, is that we're just going to have to work harder, work around, and a lot more coordination really is what it comes down to. But again, let's all, as an industry, try to be as positive about these changes as we can. Again, everything we say to someone who is not a genetic genealogist is swaying them, right? And we want to sway them towards becoming a genetic genealogist, towards an interest in this industry and in DNA. We don't want to Debbie Downer them all the time, right?
Absolutely.
So again, Michelle said it here. She said, why? Think about, why are the companies doing two-factor? They're doing it to prevent the same kind of issue from having the same effect. Isn't that amazing that we already have a solution in place that can stop exactly the problem that happened? Isn't it amazing that the solution was already in place, but we weren't using it because it's a bother, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, no, thanks, not going to do two-factor. It's too difficult, right? I don't want to have to do that every time I want to log in. So just changing your own attitude, and every time that two-factor comes up, go, that's awesome. I love that they're keeping my data safe, right? Let's just all be positive, right? This is a good thing overall, right? We are protecting, and Michelle's going to talk about this, we are future proofing, right, problems that might come on. All right, let's
And we
circle
have
back.
to, because we don't
We
want to
have to.
lose our
We have
tools,
to.
and we
Right,
don't want to
exactly.
lose what we have. So
For sure.
we have to think about it from that standpoint. You know, if
Yeah.
there are more breaches, if more things go wrong, and we don't do this, then we are going to lose more. So try not to think of it as a bother. Try to think of it as a protection, and
Definitely.
that is what it is. All right.
Okay, let's circle back to what steps has Ancestry taken. Now, you already mentioned, so Ancestry has this fabulous sharing feature. So we don't have to do the workaround, share logins or anything, right? Because they actually have set this up for years where you can have your family member log into their account, give you access in your own account to their results. So we'll
Yep,
send you, and we'll
absolutely.
put in this video in the links as well. The link, we have a whole like resource page at Your DNA Guide about how to do that you can send to your relative and they can follow the steps. And then it's so much easier. So yeah, I'm with you, Michelle. Let's hope other companies get a clue, and
Yeah,
especially MyHeritage, to do that
it's
for us
my
as well.
favorite thing, really.
Yeah.
It helps no end with working on other people's test
Same.
results. I
Totally
give
agree.
them step-by-step instructions, and it's just a few quick clicks, and I have access in my own account. I've probably got access to, I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands, of people's DNA results over the years. And it is years. Ancestry have been giving this for a very, very long time. So Ancestry haven't changed a lot. Ancestry however, they have made two-factor authentication mandatory. That is what's happening. It hasn't quite happened yet. You can still disable it right now. However, they have said it will be a requirement and put into effect as a requirement by the end of the year. So that's the timeline that we have for it. And they did send out emails on the 6th of November or around then to anyone with an account, with a DNA account. If you don't have a DNA account, then it's not going to be mandatory. But anyone with DNA, it's going to be mandatory. And you were invited at that point to set it up in this email sent out on the 6th of November. Now, with Ancestry, the one thing is that there isn't an authenticator app that you can use with it currently. So it has to be either via email, your code, or via mobile phone. So bear that in mind at this point in time. But that's the only thing Ancestry have done, because they already have the sharing in place. They have had for years, and they don't accept uploads or anything like that. So they're already pretty secure on that front. But we are going to have to use that two-factor authentication going forward.
All right. And then just quickly, how about FamilyTreeDNA?
So FamilyTreeDNA are going to bring in two-factor authentication. It's not there right now, but they're in the process of working out how to get it implemented onto their site. So just hang on for information on it. It will be mandatory as well. So that's happening everywhere. We just have to accept that and get used to it. In the meantime, though, they have taken some temporary measures for safeguarding. So they've suspended transfers of 23andMe data as of 24th of October. There's no timeline on how long that may last at the moment. They've also temporarily paused downloading of matched lists and segment data for everyone. However, these will return once the two-factor authentication is implemented. They have said that. And they are going to remove the ability of people with free transfers, so people who test Ancestry and just upload to FamilyTreeDNA and then do not pay the $19 unlock fee. They are not going to have the ability to download match lists, because of course, if a hacker was trying to get a lot of data, then that may prevent them from getting a lot if they had to pay $19 to get into each and every set of data. So those are the things that FamilyTreeDNA are instituting currently. Some of them are temporary measures. Two-factor authentication will be a permanent measure. So look out for that coming your way. And another key thing about FamilyTreeDNA, of course, is if you are a project administrator, if you have a GAP user account, then it's a really good idea to make sure you're not reusing a password there. FamilyTreeDNA is a bit more secure in terms of potentially reused usernames and passwords than the other sites, simply because they provide a unique kit number and a unique password when you open up your account. And many people don't change the password, and the kit numbers are all going to be unique anyway. So from that standpoint, they're in a better place anyway. But if you use your email address as your GAP username, just make sure that you are using a unique password there.
That's right. So I just want to bring this up from Glenna. Let me know what you think. So she's asking, I manage kits, and she said later in the chat at 23andMe and Ancestry. So again, Glenna, we've provided you what I hope is a good solution for Ancestry. So you can just log into those accounts one time, and then, so you'd have to coordinate with your relative to do that 2-factor to log in that one time. And then you can switch it to your account, never have to log into their accounts again. At 23andMe, you're going to have to get into their account one time, but then 2-factor is all about double checking, right? But you tell it how you want to double check. So if you put your email address into their account, then the 2-factor comes to your email address. There's no coordinating needed. So as long as your relatives have given you permission to manage their kits, manage their tests at any company, you just need to change the contact information from theirs to yours. And then it all comes to you, and you do the 2-factor, and you're off and running. So it really shouldn't affect, even at other companies, us managing other people, as long as we're the owner, right? The owner for all practical purposes. You just put your own contact information in there. So is there anything else you'd tell Glenna?
Yeah, no, just that really. If you are the person that's the only person that's working with these, if these people have tested for you, however it's set up in their email address, and they're never going to look at it, and they give you full permission to be the person managing it, then you need to make sure that it's your email address and it's you that's going to get the 2-factor code so that you can get in and out of the account. But with Ancestry, go in, you can be the manager, you can just work on it all in your own account. You don't need to be logging into their accounts after that point. The only thing with that, and I hope Ancestry do think about it, is the fact that a lot of the time we may be setting up new accounts for relatives that we get to test. They never look at those accounts, they're not interested in them, they've done it for us. We make ourselves the manager, and then we stay away from that account. However, somebody might message that account. They might message the tester as opposed to the manager. That does happen. So sometimes we want to log in and just make sure there aren't any messages that we need to reply to on those sort of additional accounts we've created for our family members at Ancestry, again, with their permission. So we do need to think about that side of it a little bit as well.
All right, so let's talk about what each of us can be doing. We've only got just a few minutes left. So if we summarize some things we've already mentioned. So setting up the sharing at Ancestry, making sure you do have 2-factor activated at MyHeritage, 23andMe, and Ancestry, and then at FamilyTreeDNA when that does come about. Making sure our passwords and, if possible, usernames are unique to this one website, and not just our DNA testing websites, but across your entire internet life. You should have.
I know it's daunting, but
right? It is daunting.
Unique, strong passwords that are never, ever, ever, ever reused at any other site. And the best way to do that is using a password manager, whether that's something like LastPass, Bitwarden, 1Password, or Google Password Manager, or the Apple one, which is integrated into Apple OS. And of course, if you're worried about it, you can use these to help you check for any of your passwords that might have been compromised. Google Password Manager, for instance, you can run checkups and detect compromised login information. You can do the same with Apple. So do that if you're worried about it. There's also a neat little thing on 23andMe where you can go and see all the logins on your account there. It's called the account event history. You can get at it in the settings underneath 23andMe data. Just click view, and you can then download your account event history, and you can see all the attempted logins and where they came from, and if any don't look like you, then you're going to know if you were part of that breach, but you should have already had an email to say if you were part of it or not.
Excellent. All right, so last question before the last question. We've hinted at this a little bit, but what are your thoughts on future-proofing our DNA results? What does that mean, and what can we do?
I think one of the key things about future-proofing is obviously download our raw data and keep it on a safe computer. Make sure that we have that in case anything ever goes wrong on the testing sites and we ever want it. But think about the future when we're not here. And unfortunately, that's one thing that we all can't avoid. So beneficiaries, FTDNA is the only account where you can go in and you can tell them who your beneficiary is, but make sure you put it in your will. Make sure you've got all of your account details, your logins, your passwords, the email addresses associated with it, written down in a list to be passed to your next of kin or to whoever you want to have that data once you've passed away. Bequeath your results and make sure that you have that all sorted out. And Blaine Bettinger has also created a really good beneficiary form. Your DNA Guide has a blog post all on beneficiaries, so do read that. And if you have access to a deceased family members' results, but their account's under an old defunct email, get in there and change it to yours before anything else could go wrong with it.
Right. Okay. So I've got just a couple comments here from the chat I want to make sure everybody sees. So both Marie and Myra have this kind of same question. So how can I manage or others' accounts who would like to see and enjoy their information? Again, if you take over, like you put your email address or whatever, you can still share that with them. They can still log in and see their own results on occasion, but you're the one who's getting all the two factors, so they'd have to coordinate with you to be able to log in, but they still have access. And again, at Ancestry, it's not an issue at all because they still will always have their own login. That's why Ancestry does it the way they do. So they will always have their own login and password that will always be theirs. And so they'll always have access when they're at Ancestry. There was another question. And I've lost it. I did not write it down that I wanted to share, but that's okay. So my last question for you, Michelle, is what do you think, why do you think this work of genetic genealogy is so important and worth all of these headaches that we're kind of going through to grow, I guess?
It's so worth all the headaches because of what it can provide for us. It's such a powerful tool. It can help us answer questions we could never get answers to, and some of those questions really affect people's lives and well-being. Questions surrounding identity: where did I come from, who did I come from, who am I? Big questions that really are so important. But even the who was my second great grandfather is an important question that plagues some people as well, and we can't just look at one and not the other. Genetic genealogy has the power to bring us those answers, to bring peace, even to bring upset at times, but it has the power to connect, to bring people together, to create reunions, and to give back senses of identity. So yeah, it's well worth it. It's worth the headaches, and it's worth us trying to make sure that we keep what we're doing safe and secure so that we can keep doing it.
That's right. That's right. It's so important. So thank you, Michelle, for joining us. Thank you to all of you who came and joined us live. For those of you who are watching the recording, thanks for catching up with us at some later date. You can find a lot of the links that we talked about, resources to help you kind of move forward to make your own data more secure, as well as to learn more about kind of what's happening and what's going on. You can find all of those links underneath the video here once we've wrapped up. Those will be posted for you. Especially, I just want to shout out again to that idea of making sure you're creating a beneficiary. This is one of the best next steps that all of us can take moving forward. It's really, really, really hard to get access to your relatives' DNA test results once they've passed, for good reason, right? So make sure you have all the information for your next person who's going to take over this written out somewhere clearly and legibly, so there's no question about how they can move forward with your very, very valuable results. So thanks again, Michelle, for joining us. Thanks for all of you who are supportive of our industry, who are out there campaigning for all of these wonderful changes to happen, and for getting on the bus and staying on the bus and using your data in such powerful ways to make such a difference in your family history. We are not going to have an Ask the Experts series edition in December. We're going to take the month off, but hopefully we'll start up again in January. We did receive a lot of you telling us who you wanted to see. We would love even more suggestions, so you can comment underneath this video and let us know who should we bring on Ask the Expert. What kind of questions do you have that we could find an expert to answer? We're excited about this series and excited about how fun it's been to put together. So again, thank you all for your support, and we'll see you next time. Take care.